went back to the day he confessed his feelings to me. The boy was wearing a white shirt, his eyes soft as he said, "I like you." A second later, I heard his true thoughts. Believe that? Disgusting. The cicadas were loud on the camphor trees, and the people around us were cheering. Though it was more like they were watching a joke unfold. Someone nearby whistled and laughed. Zhou Xiao's tastes seem a bit mild lately. The boy in the white shirt ignored them. Standing in front of me with tender eyes, the sunlight filtered through his shoulders, making him look like a prince from a fairy tale. Zhou Jiaxu leaned against the handle of my bicycle, bending down to look at me, his warm breath touching my face. He said, "Song Jiwei, I like you." I saw my reflection in his eyes, a frail girl hidden under an oversized school uniform, slightly anemic. That was me at 17. I was still stunned. My face undoubtedly flushed and my fingertips trembling. After all, this was Zhou Jiaxu, the boy I had secretly adored for so long. Before I could blurt out, "I like you too," I heard the pure-hearted boy's inner voice. Believe that? Disgusting. I paused for a moment, then looked up at Zhou Jiaxu in front of me. He was smiling tenderly, showing no sign of the disgust hidden deep inside. He confidently waited for my response, since everyone at Nancheng knew. I knew I was head over heels for him. I pursed my lips, took a step back, and said with a trembling voice, "Sorry, I don't like you." Zhou Jiaxu's face turned ugly just as a prominent white-haired boy casually passed by, looking as if he hadn't noticed the drama unfolding. I knew him. He was the school bully and Zhou Jiaxu's arch-rival. Pointing at the white-haired bully, I told Zhou Jiaxu, "I prefer that type, you understand." I grabbed the handle of my bicycle and shook it. "So?" "Zhou Jiaxu, step aside." Zhou Jiaxu was probably baffled, not understanding how the girl who only had eyes for him a second ago was now telling him to get lost. He stiffly placed his hand on my bike's handle, a strong sense of unease in his expression, and pressed his lips together as he asked, "What's wrong?" Boys naturally have more strength than girls, and with him holding it, I couldn't move my bicycle at all. Sweat ran anxiously down my forehead, but then suddenly, someone took the handle from me with one hand, easily breaking free from Zhou Jiaxu's grip. "Didn't you hear? She told you to get lost." The voice was cold and slightly hoarse. I looked up to see the school bully's profile, his superior features and short silver-white hair glistening in the light, looking incredibly cool. The next second, I heard the school bully's panicked inner voice, "Damn, she's looking at me." The school bully rescued me from Zhou Jiaxu's confession, pushing my pink bicycle forward, as some younger students teased him. "Chang Qi, when did you stop riding motorcycles?" He kicked one of them and cursed, "Get lost." I walked beside him, feeling nervous, and mustered the courage to speak. "School bully, Chang Qi." I paused for a moment before realizing he was telling me his name. He looked down slightly and asked softly, "Do you like me?" I instinctively wanted to shake my head but then heard his sinister inner thought. "Those who use me as a shield end up encased in concrete." My head quickly turned, and I nodded emphatically several times. Chang Qi has eyes that resemble peach blossoms, which now curve into a smile as he stops walking, frees his hand to touch my face, and gently taps the mole below my eye with his thumb. He speaks leisurely, "From now on, you'll do my homework, come watch my basketball games, and walk me to school. Treat me like you did Zhou Jiaxu, but 10 times better, got it?" I was a bit confused and asked, "What do you mean by that?" He condescendingly patted my face. "It means I'm letting you chase after me." Chang Qi, with his dyed silver hair and earrings, looks like someone who's hard to please written all over his face. Suddenly, I feel like maybe I'm better off going back and continuing the battle with Zhou Jiaxu. I followed the familiar path back home. This area is filled with villas. I wasn't brought back from the countryside until I was 17. At that age, I didn't understand many things, like why my mother was the first wife, yet I had a half-sister, Songji, who was a few months older than me. Everyone liked Songji, including Zhou Jiaxu. Zhou Jiaxu and Songji were childhood sweethearts. Even his initial kindness towards me was to persuade me to donate a kidney to her. If it weren't for Songji's illness, the Song family would never have thought to bring me back. To them, I wasn't a person, but a remedy. But now, their intentions hadn't yet been revealed. Songji, who was recuperating at home, was watering the garden. Hearing me enter, she looked up and smiled gently. "You're back late. We've already had dinner." It didn't matter to me. I didn't have the privilege to dine at the table anyway. Zhou Jiaxu confessed his feelings to me today. Her watering can suddenly drop to the ground, splashing water on her face. She forced a smile. "Really? I wish you well." Surprised, I raised an eyebrow. Of course, I didn't accept. How could he be worthy of me? In that moment, I was overwhelmed by numerous spiteful and hateful thoughts, all coming from the usually kind Songji, a mere kidney donor, not grateful to us. How dare you speak like that? Jiaxu only told me he would get close to Song Jiwei. He didn't say he'd confess his feelings for her. She must have seduced him. Song Jiwei, have you looked in the mirror? So ugly and flat. I smiled wryly, thinking they still expect to rely on me to survive. Wishful thinking. I ran upstairs, hearing Songji vigorously coughing behind me. As I climbed the stairs, a close family maid whispered to me, "The lady ordered not to save dinner for you." I nodded. It was usual. As I turned around, I paused. Hearing the maid's heartfelt pity, so pitiful, before I returned, it was when Song-ji successfully recovered and was discharged from the hospital thanks to my kidney. Jo Jiashu promised me that it would be his engagement. Unexpectedly, he did get engaged, but not to me, to Song-ji. Enduring nausea and disgust, he had been deceiving me, this country girl he despised, and finally got his wish. On the day of his engagement, he held Song-ji by the waist in front of many guests, and as gently as when he confessed, he said to me, "Song-ji-wei, why don't you take a look in the mirror?" I looked down and saw my swollen figure, swollen from medication, reflected on the spotlessly clean floor, starkly different from the slender and radiant Song-ji. Maybe it was always meant to be worlds apart. In that moment, my heart felt shattered. Fortunately, I woke up from the dream, back to the moment when Jo Jiashu first confessed his feelings to me, and I even unlocked a skill that allowed me to hear people's true thoughts. I took out my phone from under the pillow, and as soon as I opened the messaging app, I was greeted with over 99 unread messages. There was only one pinned at the top, from Jo Jiashu. At 17, I really liked him a lot. Jo Jiashu's messages kept popping up. Clearly, he was quite upset. Jo Jiashu, Song-ji-wei, I'm giving you one more chance. My confession still stands. Jo Jiashu, are you deliberately trying to anger me? Well, you've succeeded. Jo Jiashu, stay away from Chang-chi. He's no good. There were several missed calls, and scrolling up, I saw all the messages I had sent him, usually met with silence on his end. On rare occasions, a reply from Jo Jiashu would make my day. Now, Jo Jiashu was still sending a continuous stream of messages. I quickly blocked him with a single click, then leisurely, I entered the grade group chat, and sure enough, they were discussing the incident from the afternoon, the school heartthrob and the tough guy fighting over a girl. A boring headline. They even posted photos from the scene. I clicked on one and instantly blushed. In the photo, a young man with silver white hair was nearly embracing the girl, reaching over the bicycle handle she was holding, and provocatively staring down Jo Jiashu with a raised eyebrow. The comments continued to flood in. Who is this girl anyway? Even the star beauty from the neighboring school hasn't caught Chang Brothers' attention. He usually doesn't allow pictures of him. But today there's so many and he hasn't said a thing. It must be serious. I exited the chat just as I received a new friend notification. The username was CC, with the note, Song Jiwei's admirer. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked accept. Jiwei, I've accepted your friend request. Now we can start chatting. After a brief pause, he sent a voice message. His voice was husky as he said, just friends. I intended to pause the voice message, but in my fluster, I accidentally initiated a video call. He answered, and a handsome face appeared extremely close to the camera, almost as if his eyelashes could brush against my face. I instinctively held my phone a bit farther away, then I heard him chuckle from the screen. Chang-chi teasingly said, "Why is your face so red while talking to me?" I struggled to find words. Then, from his side of the screen, someone shouted, wanting to lean in, "Brother Chang, we want to see our sister-in-law." It's all over the forums. Chang-chi didn't even look back, just chuckled and said, "Get lost." He then reached out, covering the camera like a child hoarding his toys. Pretty childish, really. After a while, Chang-chi moved his hand away, his lips curving into a smile. Couldn't stand being apart for a bit and had to video call me. Huh, miss me? His tone was light, almost seductive. I was about to explain when suddenly, my stomach growled loudly. I was hungry. Before he could react, I quickly pressed the red hang-up button and buried my head in my hands. So embarrassing. End of translation. I couldn't step out, and there was no dinner left for me at home. I searched the entire room but found no snacks or bread. I had no choice but to resign myself to lying in bed and waiting it out. Outside the window stood a tall camphor tree. If it weren't for this tree blocking the view and sunlight, I wouldn't have been given this south-facing room. The leaves rustled, and I heard the sound of knuckles tapping on the glass. Looking up, I saw a silver-haired young man climbing the branches of the camphor tree, acting recklessly. He tapped on the window with one hand while holding a bulging bag in the other. I hurried to my feet and, in disbelief, opened the window as the night wind rushed in like wildfire. I had heard that Chang-chi had gone into special forces training right after graduation. His physical condition was indeed top-notch. Chang-chi handed me the bag, his elegant fingers well-defined as he curved his lips into a smirk. "Dear Miss Jiwei, it's Chang Brothers Delivery Service," he whispered. "Would you consider giving a 5-star rating? After all, who is chasing whom? Chang-chi?" The next day, Chang-chi gave me the answer. It was indeed me chasing him. I had to wait for him to finish school and run errands during breaks, even showing up to support him at his basketball games. I brought Chang-chi 2 bottles of sports drink as a thank you for last night's delivery. I walked slowly to the gymnasium, only to find it crowded, especially with girls shouting the names of Chang-chi and Jo Jiashu. There was a basketball game between class 1 and 3, and they were in those respective classes. As I walked towards Chang-chi, someone blocked my path. It was Jo Jiashu standing right in front of me, his comment from yesterday still stinging in my heart. His expression softened slightly as he reached for the drink in my hand. It had always been like this. I brought him water when he played basketball and took notes while he studied. Occasionally he would sweeten the deal. Jiaxu said, since you brought me water, I'll forgive you for yesterday. I dodged his hand and looked down. Excuse me, he stood frozen. I quickly walked a few steps to Changqi behind him and handed him the drinks. Changqi squinted his eyes, seemingly in a good mood, and lazily said, oh, I can't open the bottle. Resigned, I took the bottle back, unscrewed the cap, and handed it to him. Changqi took a sip, his Adam's apple bobbing, and chuckled towards the direction behind me. Suddenly, I heard his inner thoughts. Changqi was thinking, ugh, I detest presumptuous people. I turned around, and Jiaxu was still standing there, looking a bit flustered, his lips pursed, and as I looked over, he averted his dark eyes. He was angry, and I was pleased. Changqi was in top form, unstoppable on the basketball court, inciting waves of screams in the gym. In contrast, Jiaxu was unusually distracted and kept glancing over in our direction, almost getting trounced. It was no surprise that Changqi's class won. After the game, Changqi walked over to me, his face full of triumphant spirit. I handed him the water, and he leaned down, hooking his finger for me to come closer. I felt my face and neck enveloped by his warm breath. Changqi drawled, after watching my game, got nothing to say. I blinked, and the girls next to me had been exclaiming for half an hour about how handsome Brother Qi was. I looked up at him hesitantly and echoed, Brother Qi is handsome. The next second, my head was shrouded in darkness under a jacket. It was the school uniform jacket Brother Qi had set aside before entering the scene, still carrying a scent of soap. I heard someone shouting, Brother Qi, why are your ears and face so red? Did those guys from class 1 play dirty and hurt you? Brother Qi clenched his teeth and hissed, shut up. 8. Life became much easier without revolving around Jiaxu. My impression of Changqi still lingered on that time when I came out of the convenience store and stumbled upon him fighting with some guys from the neighboring school. Terrified, I crouched down on the ground, fearing I might accidentally get hurt, and only dared to look up when everything went quiet. Only Changqi was left standing, leaning against the wall with a smirk as he looked at me. I was scared. Changqi asked, got a band-aid? I did have one. Hesitating, I still approached and handed one to him. Instead, he extended his hand, his pale back of the hand slightly scraped, signaling me to apply it for him. Changqi lowered his gaze and asked, from first middle school? I nodded. Which class? What's your name? Fearful of the school bully seeking revenge later, I gave a vague response. Just always been a fan of Jiaxu. That wasn't entirely untrue. At first middle school, maybe not many knew Song Jiwei, but Jiaxu's sycophant was likely well remembered. Just as I was tearing open the band-aid wrapper, Changqi suddenly withdrew his hand, his expression turning cold. Boring. I didn't know which word had set him off. As he walked away, his back looked somewhat frail and unsteady, yet, now that I was getting to know Changqi, I found him unexpectedly obedient. Even when he got angry, he was quite easy to appease. On the other hand, Jiaxu always seemed unpredictable. When he was nice to me, it felt like he genuinely liked me, but when he was not, he was truly spiteful. Fortunately, I probably wouldn't have much to do with him anymore. Then, after school, Jiaxu showed up at the Song residence. I went downstairs to grab some study guides and saw Songji happily running out of the piano room, half complaining and half cooing. Jiaxu, it's been so long since you last visited me. Jiaxu paused for a moment and asked, how's your recovery? Songji chattered non-stop. My health has just been a burden on my parents, but I'm fine. You don't need to worry. I'll ask Auntie to cut some fruit for you. You love? Jiaxu cut her off, his lips pursed. No need. He looked up at the stairs and caught my eye as I stood there. He said, I'm here to see Song Jiwei. Songji froze, as if she hadn't heard him right, and repeated, Brother Jiaxu, who are you looking for? Ignoring her, Jiaxu slowly said, Song Jiwei, come down and talk. Under his gaze, I slowly descended the stairs and then, right in front of him, picked up my Idiot's Guide to High School Math, sighed, and said, it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I'm discussing math problems with Changqi over video. He'll be upset if he has to wait too long. Songji's face turned pale. Jiaxu's face darkened. 9. That night, Songji made a fuss all night long, insisting on returning to school. She was much loved and recently in good health, so the family agreed. After her school re-entry process was completed, Songji's mother, for the first time, condescendingly spoke so much to me. It was half instruction and half threat, essentially summarizing that I should act as Songji's study companion and servant at school. Songji's mother said, Song Jiwei, don't forget, being able to study here is all thanks to the resources I've provided for you. She has always looked down on me, the country girl, and never took me seriously. My father made his fortune thanks to Songji's mother, a second-generation wealthy businesswoman, so naturally, her status is higher. I meekly agreed. It wasn't until the end of the conversation that my father finally spoke up, calling my name, Song Ji-wei. I turned around, he said, "Don't call Gigi a sister at school, it's hard to explain." Same father, but the two sisters are only a few months apart, who could explain that? As soon as Song-ji returned to school, she caused a stir. She had taken a medical leave for half a semester, and during her time at school, thanks to her knack for management, she was considered a prominent figure. She and Zhou Jiaxu were in the same class and recently seemed inseparable. Soon, the rumors about me and Zhou Jiaxu self-destructed, with her parents backing her. Song-ji would boss me around as she pleased. Being under someone's roof, I indeed had no choice but to bow my head. In the sweltering 40-degree midsummer noon, I ran errands for her and her friends, buying ice pops, returning drenched in sweat. I found them laughing together. That's Song Ji-wei. You can tell she's a poor country bumpkin the moment you see her. She clung to Zhou Jiaxu and then moved on to Cheng Qi. Song Jiwei's grades are terrible. She's nowhere near as good as Gigi. Zhou Jiaxu and Gigi are childhood sweethearts. Gigi, what's your relationship with Song Jiwei anyway? I've never seen such an obedient dog. They burst into laughter as if they had heard the joke of the century. Suddenly, someone said, "Hey, Gigi. Song Jiwei has the same last name as you." Song Ji's smile froze for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. Song Jiwei is the daughter of our family's housekeeper. My dad pulled some strings to get her into our school. I interrupted their praises of Song Ji's kind family. Placing the foam box of ice pops on the table, Song Ji reached out and fiddled with the contents. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, I heard, "Jiwei, they're all melted. Could you run out again?" I lowered my eyes, pondering how to retort. Suddenly, a cool voice spoke up, not as gentle as usual. Zhou Jiaxu said indifferently, "Song-ji, that's too much." Silence fell around us. Song-ji looked up, a bit wronged. "Jiaxu, you know she is." She swallowed her next words, seemingly unable to speak them out loud while looking at Zhou Jiaxu. I heard Song-ji's inner turmoil, half anger and half grievance. She thought, why has his attitude changed when we share similar experiences? I glanced at Zhou Jiaxu, puzzled by his sudden defense of me. Perhaps they had changed their tactics, one playing good cop, the other bad cop. I slowly said, "What's too much about it? Haven't you done the same?" When I first pursued Zhou Jiaxu, he was quite annoying. He sent me out to buy coffee in a storm, and when I returned soaked, the coffee not even spilled, he merely glanced and said, "Song Ji-wei, the coffee's cold." Zhou Jiaxu clearly remembered this too. The air grew colder, and no one dared to speak. In the ensuing silence, someone lazily hooked their arm around my neck from behind, pulling me gently backward into their embrace, crashing into a refreshing coolness of summer. I looked up to see Cheng Qi's eyes, amused yet mocking. "I was wondering where you've been these past days, running errands for others." Cheng Qi scanned the crowd, his gaze passing over those present. His name had been a buzz on the campus forums, notorious as the school tyrant. "Let her run the errands," Cheng Qi articulated clearly, pausing after each word. "Are you even worthy?" Cheng Qi watched with a smirk as the group obediently went off to run laps, not daring to utter a word in protest. Even Songji wasn't exempt. A group of them drank melted ice pops and ran laps around the field under the scorching sun. Drawing the gaze of classmates from the balconies, the head of discipline hurried toward the field, his half-bald head gleaming in the sunlight. The instigator, Cheng Qi, stood beside me, his silver hair boldly prominent, squinting down at the people below, his hostility unabated. "Cheng Qi." I called out his name. He turned, and the fierceness in his eyes melted away instantly. "Don't do this next time," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper. "It's not a good look." It wasn't that I felt pity for Song Ji and the others, rather, it was that Cheng Qi doing all this for me felt unwarranted. Since my mother passed away, I had been mostly self-sufficient. No one had ever treated me this well, although I'd heard Cheng Qi had been involved in even shadier dealings before. Such blatant disregard for rules definitely cast him in a negative light. Cheng Qi rested his chin on his hand, leaning close enough for me to count his eyelashes. "And I saw my reflection in his eyes. Feel better?" he asked. I paused for a moment. "Yes." Cheng Qi's lips curved into a smirk, his knuckle lightly tapping my forehead. "Then, the impact is quite positive." With Cheng Qi stepping in, Songji no longer dared to boss me around. Scared off by just the mention of his name, so much so that she didn't even complain to her family. Perhaps my words had struck a chord with Zhou Jiaxu, as he too stopped bothering me, occasionally. I saw Zhou Jiaxu and Songji together at school. Songji would look at Zhou tenderly one second and then switch to glaring at me with disgust the next, a real talent for dramatics. But Zhou didn't seem as close to her as I had imagined. However, none of that mattered to me anymore. My only task was to study hard. Lately, there might be another task, tutoring the underachieving student, Cheng Qi. On the day the monthly test scores were posted, the bulletin board was surrounded by a crowd. My grades weren't great before, but during the days I lay in the hospital before coming back, I had studied high school textbooks, hoping to retake the college entrance exam one day, so I was also looking forward to seeing my ranking. Songji and her group were at the forefront of the board. Gigi, you're ranked 29th in the grade. That's impressive. Of course, she was impressive. Her family hired top tutors for her daily. The top of the grade, as expected, is Zhou Jiaxu. They turned around to see me starting from the bottom of the grade, inevitably sneering a bit. I heard Songji whisper, "Some people know their place, aware of where they stand." Suddenly, someone tugged at her sleeve, voice trembling. "Gigi, her ranking, it seems to be ahead of yours. Just a few spots above her." Songji stared at the bulletin board, her face turning pale. "Someone read out my position." Songji Wei, 20th, surprisingly high, containing my joy. I finally spotted Chengqi's name. He had jumped to the middle ranks. The Jiwei tutoring class was evidently effective. I turned around, and Chengqi was walking with a group of boys from the end of the corridor, heading to play basketball. I waved, worried he wouldn't see me. I tiptoed and called out his name excitedly, "Chengqi." He lifted his eyelids and looked towards me. 300th place. My eyes curved up, filled with joy and pride. "You ranked 300th, Chengqi." Changqi paused in his steps, while the people nearby teasingly nudged his elbow. "Bro, Chang, your girl is quite cute." Under everyone's gaze, the face of the school tyrant suddenly flushed red. I could sense Changqi was somewhat irritated. He thought to himself, "It's over, how can she be so good at this?" People who liked Changqi were many, but due to his reputation as the school tyrant, most harbored secret crushes. However, the one who approached me today was one of the few who openly showed their interest, the school beauty from the neighboring high school, Jiang Xan, who had acted in a few somewhat famous youth dramas. I heard Chengqi fought for her before, though I don't know why they never became a couple. She had been waiting for me at the school gate since early morning. Chengqi and I now go to school together. He had gone to the convenience store to buy breakfast for me, and I was waiting for him at the gate, only to be approached by Jiang Xan first. Jiang Xan was very beautiful. If Songji is the sole pure white jasmine, then Jiang Xan is the intense rose. "Are you Songji Wei?" I nodded. Jiang Xan got straight to the point. "You can't win against me. Stay away from Chi. Chi appears cold but has a kind heart. Sometimes his sympathy can be overwhelming, giving others the wrong impression. Moreover, after what was said about you on the forum last night, I would be too ashamed to even come to school if I were you. Chi's interest in you is just a fleeting fascination. Persisting any further will only bring you embarrassment. Forum? What forum? She finished speaking, but suddenly her eyes lit up and looked past me, affectionately calling out, Chi. Before I could react, a cup of soy milk and a bun were thrust into my hands, and the silver-haired young man with a bag of pure milk bent down, slipping a packet of sugar into my pocket, and even zipped up my partially open backpack. Changqi didn't look at Jiang Xan and mumbled unclearly. "What were you saying?" I blurted out quickly. "She said you're a 3-minute man." Changqi, my words were ambiguous, and my face turned red. Changqi, who hadn't secured the milk bag properly, turned his head with a murderous look towards Jiang Xan. Changqi's actions were as smooth and practiced as if he had done them countless times before. Jiang Xan watched Changqi zip up my backpack, her face turning pale. Chi, you never let others get too close. How can you do these things for her?" Changqi slightly lifted his eyelids and spat out 2 words. "Who are you?" Being a celebrity usually requires a strong mental constitution, but with just 2 words, Changqi broke Jiang Xan's composure. As Changqi and I walked into the school, he suddenly spoke. "I don't know her. I never fought for her. It's all just rumors." I was momentarily stunned, then realized that Changqi was explaining to me. I looked up at Changqi, his light-colored hair making his complexion appear even more pale. He lazily said, "I'm not like some people, who liked someone else before they liked me." Fortunately, she realized her mistake in time. His tone was ambiguous, not clear whom he was referring to. He lightly raised his eyebrows, cueing me, "Right, Songji Wei." After the morning's drama, I had a lingering sense of unease. True enough, as soon as I entered the school, something felt off. It was especially apparent during the break. The looks I received in the hallway were peculiar, and I heard whispers from all around. Song Jiwei is actually an illegitimate daughter. No wonder she's playing both sides. It must be in her nature from birth. If I were her, I wouldn't dare to face Songji, let alone go to school with him. Oh my, that's disgusting. I realized something, and while in the restroom stall, I turned on my phone and checked the forum. Sure enough, there was a trending post about Song Jiwei, the secret child from Yizhong, playing both sides. The post was anonymous, claimed by a fellow student who couldn't stand Song Jiwei, and it dramatically and falsely narrated my background, completely distorting the truth. It said that Songji's parents were the loving and rightful couple. My mother schemed to seduce Song's father for his wealth, and has been using me to blackmail the Song family ever since. Now she had sent me to Yizhong to latch onto wealthy heirs. The post described Songji as pitiful, even blaming my mother for his poor health, and how shamelessly I clung to Zhou Jiaxu and Cheng Qi. I didn't need to read further. The comments were all full of scorn. I was so angry I felt dizzy. The truth was not like that at all. It was actually Songji's mother who had set her sights on my newlywed father, becoming the other woman, and eventually, they ran off together, leaving my father to never look back at us. Until her death, my mother still hoped he would come back to her. I left the restroom and washed my face at the sink. Zhou Jiaxu passed me a piece of paper. He whispered, "I've already had someone handle the situation on the forum, don't worry." I looked at him through the mirror, his eyes gentled beneath his white shirt. "Did you already know about this?" I asked. Referring to the content of the post, Zhou Jiaxu closed his eyes in distaste and nodded. "I'll take care of this, no one will talk about your background, and don't be mad at me anymore. After this blows over, let's pretend it never happened." He had assumed it to be true without even asking me. He reopened his eyes and looked at me tenderly. "You see. From the moment we first met, I've been helping you. Come back, Jiwei." I dried my face, tossed the tissue in the trash, and turned to face Zhou Jiaxu, calmly stating, "Zhou Jiaxu, I am not an illegitimate daughter. From the first time we met, Zhou Jiaxu had always been helping me. When I first arrived here, I hadn't even located the Song family home yet and got lost in the villa area, chased around by a large dog from someone's house. My mother had died of rabies, and I had always been terrified of dogs. It was pouring rain that day, and as I ran, my meager belongings fell all over the place. The dog knocked me down, and I was so scared I started crying. But then I heard a whistle, and the dog immediately got off me and ran away happily. Trembling and wiping my tears in the rain, I gathered my pitiful possessions. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared over my head, held by a hand with distinct knuckles, belonging to a cold, young man in a white shirt. For a moment, I felt utterly ashamed. "Did you drive the dog away? Did you save me? What's your name?" he said. "My name is Zhou Jiaxu, living under the Song family's roof." Ignored at school, only Zhou Jiaxu constantly helped me. I always stayed by his side. Maybe I couldn't even clearly define my feelings, whether it was actually liking him. After all, from the beginning, he had his own motives. Zhou Jiaxu was a complex person. Sometimes I thought he liked me, even wanting to write his name on my textbooks, but the next second, he could just stiffen his face and cross out the names he had just written down in the textbook. I always knew he despised something about me, but I never knew what it was. Now, I understand. He always thought I was an illegitimate child, that the blood flowing through my veins was tainted. Liking Zhou Jiaxu is worse than liking a dog. I made my way unobstructed to the entrance of Class 1, and sure enough, I saw a crowd surrounding Songji. She was crying sadly, and the people around her were busy comforting her. Seeing me at the classroom doorway, they all glared at me angrily. Fortunately, after the previous incident with Cheng Qi, no one dared to mock me openly. Fearing they might offend the school tyrant, Songji had always been superficially gentle with me, since she needed something from me, but lately, something had triggered her. First, she insisted on going to school. Then there was the ice pop incident, and our conflict had essentially become public. Her eyes, red and swollen, clenched her fists until they turned white. "Song Jiwei, can't you just leave our family alone?" I heard her inner thoughts again. Zhou Jiaxu just went to see her. He used to despise illegitimate children just like I did. How could he change like this? Leaning against the wall, I chuckled. Of course not. Songji's expression froze. I walked forward, resting my hands on her desk, looking down at her. "This post is misleading. I'm not the illegitimate child, the child of the mistress. Someone else is." Songji had been well shielded by her parents, unaware of their affairs, truly believing her mother was the rightful partner, which led to this misunderstanding and her secret hostility towards me. My sudden declaration caught her off guard, prompting an instinctive rebuttal. "What proof do you have?" I shook my head, stood up straight, a hint of disdain in my posture. "No proof is needed. The accuser bears the burden of proof. The innocent do not need to prove their innocence," I said. "I will call the police. Justice will give me the answer." Did the person who spread the rumor really think they could remain anonymous without responsibility? Her face turned pale. Before I even called the police, justice arrived first. Someone mentioned the forum's anonymous feature suddenly went offline. People near me, hiding their phones behind books, were also viewing the post. The poster's name, Songji, was clearly visible. Everyone's gaze at Songji turned strange after comforting her for so long, only to find out she was the one who posted it. Truly, she was one way on the surface and another behind the back. Ultimately, Songji, being thin-skinned and overwhelmed, fainted. In the VIP hospital room, Songji had just come out from dialysis, looking pale. The caregiver was bustling around, and Songji's mother was feeding her sliced fruit. I was being scolded by Songji's father. "Song Jiwei, I am truly disappointed in you. Is this how you repay us? By upsetting my daughter to the point of hospitalization?" He completely ignored what Songji had done. I dangled my eyes tiredly, Staring at the clean floor, recalling the time I was alone in the hospital after donating a kidney to Songji, the family's attitude towards me changed drastically right after the surgery. When I first came here, it was to show my long-lost biological father that I, too, was a worthy daughter. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Luckily, I no longer cared. I understand the situation. I heard you're thinking of calling the police. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't go back to school. As those are Songji's classmates, and it wouldn't be good for her, I'll arrange a transfer for you, Mr. Song said, softening his voice as he realized his tone had been a bit too forceful. We're all family here, let's try to understand each other, okay? No, I replied softly. Mr. Song was stunned. This was the first time I had ever refused him. What did you say? He demanded sharply. My throat felt dry, the atmosphere in the hospital room grew tense, suddenly. The door swung open without warning, and a group of people entered, surrounding a young man with silver hair. He spread his hands and said, Song Jiwei, come here. I quickly walked towards him and asked in a low voice, how did you get here? Chang Chi placed his hand on my back and chuckled, I'm here to support you. Mr. Song clearly recognized Chang Chi, his expression turning somewhat ingratiating. I had no doubt that he was about to ask me to connect him with Chang Chi. I sighed, feeling unexpectedly emboldened, and repeated firmly, I said no, I will report to the police, and I am not donating my kidney. Whether Songji is alive or dead is none of my concern. Stop bothering me. I turned to look at Songji, who was gripped by panic, clutching the blanket tightly. Songji's dislike for me stemmed from our different mothers, from Zhou Jiaxu, and from her jealousy of my health. I shattered her long-held illusions. Songji, your mother was truly deceptive. And your father was definitely unfaithful during his marriage. Songji, you are the illegitimate daughter you rant about in your posts. After I had spoken my piece, I left the hospital room, leaving chaos behind. Sitting in the hospital corridor, someone suddenly crouched in front of me. Chang Chi and his companions had lingered at the door of the hospital room a bit longer, undoubtedly handling the aftermath for me. If it weren't for him, today wouldn't have been so easy for me. I pinched the palm of my hand, looking into Chang Chi's eyes. Thank you. The sunlight filtered through his features, exceptionally clear. I hesitated, then asked, why are you so good to me? Chang Chi propped his chin and smiled slightly. Are you speaking or cooing? My face flushed instantly. It wasn't coquetry, nor was it flattery. I was genuinely asking you, Chang Chi. Chang Chi furrowed his brows as if he was really contemplating. He said, does there need to be a reason? Some people just shine brightly, and when you see them, you want to give them the best. The first time I saw you, you were being chased around by the Zhou family's dog. It was quite a scene, and I was the one who whistled the dog away. I wanted to come over to see you, but then I saw Zhou Jiaxu. Seeing him annoys me. So I left. If I had known it was you, I definitely wouldn't have turned away. Had I known it was Song Jiwei, I would never have let anyone get there first. With that turn, Zhou Jiaxu was all that filled Song Jiwei's eyes, and she couldn't see anyone else. Watching her run around for Zhou Jiaxu, seeing her suffer yet still like him, watching them happy together, all I could do was walk away in disappointment. My eyelashes fluttered, surprised that he had helped me even before Zhou Jiaxu had. I waited for him to continue, but he stopped, his peach blossom eyes making me feel warm, and then, I prompted, you're in such a hurry.